Welcome to JMC Live. Tonight is 8 p.m. Eastern, 8/27/2018, part 2 of the D.L. Moody life of D.L. Moody. So, for those that want a preview of what happened from before, we covered the beginning of his life all the way to his post-war work. And tonight we're going to continue the rest of D.L. Moody's life and legacy of his ministry. We'll also include a devotional of the life of the prophet Elijah. Tonight we have 2 songs. I will be doing God of Wonders, and Miranda will be doing Mary's Little Lamb. Go ahead.
Okay.
To me, you are holy, holy. Welcome back. So that was God of Wonders and Mary's Little Lamb. You want to tell the story behind Mary's Little Lamb?
Yeah, sure. When I was 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, somewhere in between there, my aunt played drums for a lady who was a really amazing piano player. Her name was Debbie Myers, and this lady recorded this song, and my aunt played the drums for her on the album, which is really cool. And I would, when I was little, about 3, 4, I would take the cassette tape and I would set it on my piano, my little play piano that my grandma got me. And I would pretend I was playing the piano to the album. And the drums. I had my little drum set, my little Smurf drum set over on the other side too. So, and I would play. My mom actually has a picture of me at my piano with the Debbie Myers cassette tape sitting there. And the interesting thing about Debbie Myers is she married, eventually she moved away from Southern Ohio, and she married the brother of the guy that has the long beard in the group the Oak Ridge Boys. So, very interesting. And she still plays music, and she was a really great piano player. And but anyway, so all these years later, I went after I learned played piano. I sat down and listened to the old tape again, and I was like, oh, well, I can play that. So I learned it, and yeah, and that's a kind of a tribute to my Aunt Lori and Debbie, and and how they influenced me musically and everything. So We hope you enjoyed the music part of the program, and Jeremy's going to start off with our part 2 of the life and ministry of D.L. Moody.
Correct. So, as I said a minute ago, we were going from post-war to the end. This quote, Christians should live in the world, but not be filled with it. A ship lives in the water, but if the water gets into the ship, she goes to the bottom. So Christians may live in the world, but if the world gets into them, they sink. And that's so very, very true. You know, paraphrasing we must live in this world, be part of this world, but not actually be of this world.
We could also reference the Avalon, the Christian group Avalon. They did a song called "In It, Not of It." Mm-hmm. That's basically the same thing.
You study, those that study different, Christian leaders, the paradigm that is congruent for everybody is, well, culture changes, language changes, as language change, people continually come up with new words, new verbiage, new meanings for same words. Sin ends up being the same, but how we deliver the message continues to change. Mm-hmm. And depending on if you have access, like I have before, get access to the different denominations, you see where people have been reprimanded. That was one of the biggest things that I noticed. One of the denominations, I won't list which, but in the 1900s, a church was shut down because they were gambling, playing dominoes, and somebody got reported. Stuff in the 1800s, people had prostitution and different things happening, and all sorts of different stuff. So, and you can look even today with like the big headline happening with the pastor who committed suicide. So that's the big.
No, he attempted
to commit suicide.
He's on life support.
He's on life support, and that's been the big conversation that everyone's having. What do you do when things happen in your life, and how do you move forward to where you've been? And that's what we're going to discuss with D.L. Moody's life, because many ministries today reference Dwight L. Moody as a template for what they're even doing. So for his post-war work, he studied broken people. And that was one of the biggest things that he wanted to do after the post-war. He wanted to continue to be, focused on the big crowds, but he wanted to get on a more one-on-one kind of basis with people. The same way Edward Kimball had, when he put his hand on Moody's shoulder and had that conversation with him and prayed for healing and salvation in his soul. He discovered that placing his hand on the forehead, the arm, the hand, wounded, dying people as he prayed for them, it brought them peace, comfort, and salvation. Some people say that he would grab them by their hands and he would look them straight in the eye and have this conversation.
Wow.
And it became, a template for other people, not only in ministry, but also those in the medical field too, noticed this form of compassion, and people patterned after this. He focused on the poor, and the YMCA at the time was doing more evangelism. So he took the lead in preaching, teaching, and doing fundraising under the YMCA. And he had a big heart for those that are in Chicago. So that's what he was trying to work on at that point. And he grew so big during that Civil War moment that, people on both sides were having conversations with him. He met Major D.W. Whittle. He became friends with him. A young officer that was wounded at Vicksburg in 1863. And he became an executive with the Elgin Watch Company when Whittle returned to Chicago. And he put him to work doing Bible studies for new believers, and got him some speaking and preaching engagements. In 1973, he learned that if God taps you on the shoulder to enter full-time ministry, you find no peace until you obey. That was one of the things that was going on, which goes back to this quote, I am only one, I am one, I cannot do everything, but I can do something, and that which I can do by the grace of God, I will do. Some people think about, well, Mother Teresa said something very similar too. What was the quote, Miranda?
If you can't feed 100 people, then feed one.
Correct. So, a lot of people that are involved in ministry, we have a lot of commonalities with different things that are happening. After D.W. Whittle went in the call of preaching disciple, he mentored Paul B. Bliss, who taught music in Chicago, and that was the vocalist songwriter. By 1874, Bliss teamed up with Whittle, and the twosome of Whittle and Bliss became an anointed, popular evangelicalistic team, the way that Dale Moody and Ira Sankey, who traveled across the United States and Great Britain singing and preaching the gospel. By 1870, Ira Sankey spent half of his time holding evangelistic crusades, and they would sing the good news to more than 100 million people. Tens of thousands of people became believers or recommitted their lives and found healing and freedom from various bondages. Because of experiences with Edward Kimball and his field hospital ministry during the Civil War, he knew he had to find ways for crowds who heard him preach get individual care. So what he wanted to do is connect with local churches wherever he preached. And his crusades were 1 to 6 weeks long. And with the local ministers, and then he got even just local people involved, he wanted to do a training for an inquiry room for consultations, and believed people, he had a prayer team, he had a consult team, and then the aftercare team of people that could do things. And he believed that people shouldn't be pressured to come forward accept Christ. And he invited people to visit the inquiry rooms after the message. So he had a message, he had the altar call song, and then at the end, instead of just talking to him because he knew he couldn't do it all on his own, he had that other room. An example today is for some of the Hell House that exists, where you go and you look through rooms. At the end, you have 2 doors. The one that I worked with in Tyler, Texas, the one door is you want to go and get prayer. The other door is you just walk out and leave. And I was on the prayer team for that. And depending on what the situation was and whatnot, that's what we did. And we had cameras throughout the whole event so we could see people's reactions, so we knew how to pray. So we had an abortion room, we had death room and different things. So we knew how to pray. It's the same kind of templates going on here. This way they had an opportunity to ask all the questions that they want. You ask questions about the Bible, questions about his ministry, and there wasn't any rush. That was one of the things he wanted to do. He wanted people to have time to do things, and then to finish it off, there was information locally that was available for, you want to go to this church? Okay, I know you travel hundreds of miles, X amount of miles, in a radius from where the crusade was. You can learn where all the churches were, those ministers were involved, and you found out their locations, their addresses, and what they were involved in, where they're going next. Besides focusing on converts and new Christians to go, what he wanted to do is, his fellow workers had a lot of questions about entering ministry. So this is the other half. And they wanted to be mentored by him. And he knew he couldn't ignore them. So what he ended up doing, he sought guidance towards ministry. People that were universally educated and economically stable, like Henry Drummond and R.A. Torrey. They were both invited to travel with the team and be mentored for a ministry along the way. In fact, he was able to help both of them and build upon them and apply extensive educations so then they could become useful in the work. And what happened by doing this, he had that whole fold of what's going on. So you had the crusade, he got partnered with the local people, he got partnered with a group so then the local people can, assist. Then if you came and you wanted help, you could find out where to go, find out about ministry. If you wanted to get involved with ministry, he wanted to cover the whole bit, because some places, some evangelists and things like this is they have a sermon, you have an altar call, you pray, and then that's done. And he wanted to try and do something different. And that's what's happening. So he wanted to be part of the work and spread the gospel all over America and across the ends of the earth. And he networked with people from Chicago to Boston to New York and Philadelphia, including John Farwell, the Chicago dry goods king, John Wanamaker, the Philadelphia department store guy, Philip R. Moore, the meatpacking mogul, Colonel Junius J. Estee of Estee Oregon Company fame, and philanthropists like Miss Cyrus P. Nettie McCormick, and he wanted to help people grow and move to the different areas where their lives were. And besides building the church and a school in Chicago, he also continued back into doing the property, and he did that in Northfield, Massachusetts.
The property, what does that mean?
Securing property, buying land.
Being a real estate agent again, basically?
Well, he was buying land.
Okay. And selling it?
And made buildings near his birthplace where his mother lived until her death to a few days before she died on her 91st birthday in 1896. And they lived frugally there in Chicago, or with his mother in Massachusetts. Majority of the money went to the work. You know, he wanted to help other people. He wanted to see everything else. He wanted to help people get into school. He wanted to see, in 1879, the seminary opened for young women who were given scholarships. At Northfield Seminary, the young women study liberal arts and sciences from a Christian worldview. That was the point. He wanted to do school, he wanted to do ministry, and then he also did the boys' school in Northfield Women's Seminary. So the point of what I'm trying to say is this guy had a bigger vision than what a lot of people in his time did.
Yeah.
School, education, wanting to try and change things.
He didn't just want souls being saved, but
No.
he also wanted to prepare them to go back out into the world and help them to sow seeds.
Exactly. So
Of faith and them themselves see people get saved through their testimonies and their ministries that they started through being saved at Dale Moody's.
Yep. So to go along with that
stuff.
Bible school and the 2 preparatory seminaries in Northfield, he wanted to do something else. He discovered a class of women he wanted to help, and they were rural women with little schooling and education. They weren't what some people would have thought would have been wanting to be involved, but they committed their lives to Christ, and he wanted to try and help them grow. And some of these women wanted to serve in foreign missions, and there's a need for women to minister in America and urbanly and locally and do evangelism and house to house and personal work and helping the poor. And the Northfield Seminary was not the option for these women. They were barely literate. They were already in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. They wouldn't have been able to fit in that kind of culture.
So he realized
He thought
that,
that Chicago...
okay, we can't just feed people spiritually. We've also got to meet their physical needs, financial needs on top of their spiritual needs, because, there are people who can't just go to college.
Yep, so he did the Chicago Bible
Everybody
Institute.
he made sure, clearly, he made sure everybody that had, he used everyone's gifts no matter what they were. And he created multiple different little, ministries within his ministry for people, so people could use all of their gifts.
So what he would say is, Lord Jesus, I wish I could look into your face and ask you what I should do. Please help me equip these folks you have selected as your chosen vessels. And that time he felt to go to be the manager of the Northfield, a hotel where well-to-do Christians went for summer holidays and Bible conferences. The Northfield remained banquet during the tourist off-season from October to March. I'm thinking about the movie Holiday Inn when I'm saying this. Moody asked the manager if he could rent the 3-story red brick structure that was graced on 3 sides with the verandas overlooking all that. And it had all the rooms, a large window. It had the whole bit of like a big conference. You can see where this is going, right?
Yeah.
And he knew the original manager. And so his desire in this situation was to see disciples trained to reach unchurched people. And once it was arranged, here's what happened. October 1890, 56 women from 11 states and 7 different Christian denominations arrived for 6 months for training in the English Bible. He taught doctrine, theology, music, nursing, cooking, sewing, and hygiene. So this goes back to what Miranda just said. It wasn't just, okay, we're going to teach you about the Bible. We know you're going to have other skills because you're wanting to help other people. And by the time he died in 1899, more than 700 women completed at least 1 to 4 terms of the Northfield Bible Training School. They did personal work, include teaching scripture to adults and children, and learned to pray, how to make clothes for the needy, prepare food for the sick. And it was done without purchasing the building or establishing an endowment. It was just done, because of his relationship with that manager.
Yeah, and people just donated their time and the supplies to do it.
So then this goes to this next part where I talked about books and conferences. So what he did, he saw the need for books and magazines. This is the foundation for a lot of things that we have today. He got his brother-in-law, Fleming H. Revel, to launch what became the successful publishing house for people such as A.J. Gordon, F.B. Meyer, R.A. Torrey, A.T. Pearson, D.W. Whittle, and Moody himself. So when Fleming Revel refused to risk expand his publishing company into an inexpensive paperback, Moody himself began to publish his own stuff. The Bible Institute Corporatist Association. Hundreds of titles, inexpensively printed, and they went to jails, prisons, schools, churches, and became what is now known as the Moody Publishing and Moody Press, which we now know. So, not only did he want to do that, but he also liked the summer conferences. And around where he was at, in the Northfield and Mount Hermon schools, what he wanted, he sponsored a week-long summer Bible life conferences where people came together and inspired laymen and women. And then he had a burden to train young people. So the summer conferences that were sponsored for college students, and the first meeting was on Mount Hermon Boys School campus, July 7th through the 31st in 1886. More than 240 people showed up for that. Traveled by train and foot, lived in tents or in the open air, to be mentored by these authors, missionaries, and people that would call them home, and the foreign missions as well. People came from the United Kingdom, Japan, Germany, Norway, Siam, just to go to northern Massachusetts to learn about this. Few people have done as much as he has done to help lost souls, to mentor, to train the next generations to fulfill the Great Commission. And that's what we say here. We want to work together to fulfill the Great Commission. We have a heart like D.L. Moody because we realize we can't do everything. So we've partnered with different people all across the globe to do different kinds of things, to see different kinds of work occur.
And the main thing to remember is there was no telephone, there was no internet, there was no
No.
electricity, there was no trains, there were no
regular
most places there were no trains. It was horseback. It was if he wanted to go overseas, he had to be on a ship for weeks.
Yep.
Possibly even months, depending on where he went. It was a very hardship of, to do the ministry he did back then. Because today, look how easy it is. If somebody wanted him to go to California back in 1890 something, he'd spend days and days on a train back then. Today, from Chicago to California, 3 hours? 2 or 3 hours? He is to be commended for just the perseverance.
And there's a lot more on the CS Institute about this. In fact, there's 7 pages of D.L. Moody. I haven't even gone through all this. Plus, I have another book that has even more about D.L. Moody. I wanted to get this all done in a 2-show. I honestly could probably talk about D.L. Moody for 6 months. Breaking each piece down on what has happened, and then talking about what's being done today. I just wanted to give you guys a background.
Let's fast forward to the end of his life.
So that was the end of his life. That last bit that I read there.
Okay.
So, essentially, what you're hearing is that, before he died, he had all these things continued. And my challenge to you today, before we get into the devotional...
Well, how did he die? What did he die of?
It did not say.
It doesn't say?
It didn't say.
It just said he passed away at what age?
I think I had that here. It was 18.
He died in 1899, but I wondered how old he was. I know he was 60-something.
Yeah, he was in his 60s, I believe. So, I'm 38 now. And a lot of the things he's discussing here were in his 30s to early 50s.
Mm.
And think about
most of it's traveling overseas and things.
Putting all this stuff on your body at that age with, the heat was probably just as hot as it can get now. Maybe not as much all over.
You had no AC.
You had no AC.
It's like that song in My Chevette. No AC and no regrets in My Chevette.
So much, And now so many ministries depend upon what he does.
He also, you think about it, he had no big bands. He had no big stages, with lights and, big, Christian rock bands or concerts like that. There was nothing to, quote, draw, I guess.
And when they're saying a lot of
the
people
word
didn't
was
even have a book. They just had to hear
the word was enough. And I think that's where we need to get. It's nice to have the singers and things like that, but at the end of the day, when you're sitting at home, there's no singers, there's no band, there's no stage with somebody entertaining you or encouraging you. All the encouragement you got is your faith, your salvation, and the Bible, and the Holy Spirit. And that has to be good enough. It has to be. All that other stuff is just the fluff. Mm-hmm. Just a little icing on the cake, but that's not, that's not going to keep you. And I think about, the people in China and Iran and the Middle East and North Korea where they have no churches. They have no freedom to, they're sitting in sometimes caves or out in the middle of a jungle. They can't even sing loudly, but that's enough. Just the word and being together, or just even being alone with God and having their hidden Bible and reading their Bible secretly. That has to be enough for them. And I think, here in America, we've never known that. We've never known that kind of persecution. And many times we take that freedom for granted. Mm-hmm. And we shouldn't. We shouldn't, just one day you could go to church and you may be the only one there because everybody else has been arrested. There's no more drummers. There's no more guitar players. There's no piano players. It's just you sitting in a church. And is that going to be enough? Just being in the presence of God, in God's house, and being in the presence of the Holy Spirit, is that enough? Mm-hmm. It has to be, or you'll not make it. So we're going to move on to the Bible study, devotional.
And if Miranda's voice is
no, I'm not.
All right, you want to read the verse?
Yeah, we'll. Here is the scripture. We're continuing in the book. Walk by Faith by Angus Buchan. And tonight we're continuing reading from 1 Kings chapter 17 about the life of the prophet Elijah. And the key verse for tonight is, Then the woman said to Elijah, Now, by this I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord is in your mouth is the truth. Sorry. I didn't read that very good. Let me say that. Then the woman said to Elijah, Now, by this I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is the truth. 1 Kings 17:24. Mm-hmm.
So let me read this to you, okay? There are many men who claim to be men of God. However, the question I want us to explore today is, what does it really mean to be a man of God? A man of God walks his talk. Too many people who claim to be followers of Jesus, who claim themselves to be men of God, do not take care to ensure that their walk and their talk matches up. God looks on the heart, my friends. We have said this many times. He knows the condition of each man's heart. He's more concerned with your inner life than he is with your outer life. What is it that goes on in a man's mind and heart that defines his actions? Men of God is not scared to speak the truth of God's word. We don't run around trying to make enemies when we preach the truth. The Bible will condemn you, but it also sets you free. You don't have to try and be controversial. All you have to do is preach the truth, and you will be controversial. Why? Because Jesus was controversial. We need Elijahs more today than ever than we needed them from the foundation of the world. Men who are ready to put faith on the line. Men that will act upon their convictions. Men that are not afraid to stand up and proclaim God's truth. Many of God's ministers first and foremost to his own family. Your loved ones need to know who you are before the world does. Are you the same person on Sunday morning in church when you arrive home from church? Or how about when the front door closes? It is no good for us to be running around trying to save the world for those when our people in our own homes are lost. Your first responsibility is to share Jesus with your children. Be an example to them of what God the Father is like. Allow them to experience love, grace, forgiveness, and discipline. A loving Father leads and guides his family in the ways of God.
Here's the thing. That can be really, like, are you the same in church as you are at home? And I'm going to tell you, most of us are not. Most of us don't look the same as we're in church, because when we go to church, what do? We put on our best. We put on our best face. We fix our hair nice. We wear our best clothes. We sit in, you're not really spending a lot of time with, like, personal time with people. You're sitting in your seat and you're worshiping the Lord. So in reality, no, we're not really the same people, because if you come over to my house most days, I don't look like this. I'm in a dirty white t-shirt and sweatpants, and I'm cleaning my house. My hair's up in a bun. I don't have my face on. I don't have my hair done. I don't have my nicest clothes on. If you pop in, unexpectedly, no, I'm not really going to look the same, and I'm not going to really talk the same. I'm going to be the real me, And you're going to have a conversation. We're going to sit down and have a really good conversation. Get to know each other. Then that's the real you. And I really feel like, in reality, we aren't the real us at times when we're in church. Don't you agree, Jeremy? Because we are putting our best foot forward. We are, a lot of times, not, unless we go to the altar and we, are having people pray for us, then we're being open and real, But if we're just sitting in the pew and we don't go to the altar, nobody really sees the real us.
One thing that I do think I've seen that's real is whether you're working or you go to church or you're at a store, people don't like to talk. You have the people that love to talk and the people that don't want to talk.
And we are the people that like to talk.
And then you have that where those that don't talk don't talk. Those that do like to talk, they talk. So for those that don't talk, they're normally the ones that that will respond when talked to, and then those that do talk, they're the ones putting on the vocal act. And then those that don't talk, they're the ones that are just putting on what they see. Because we're told, at least here in America, for those that watch this show, they don't watch it anywhere else, when you walk past somebody, what do? Say, good morning. How are you today? How's it going? And you're not even required to really explain that question.
Well, most people don't honestly answer. They just say, I'm fine. That's not the real you. The real you is to be honest. If you're going to be honest, but in polite society, the proper way is to say you're fine. But if we were being real, we were being the real us, we would say, I'm having a terrible day. I'm absolutely struggling right now. But in polite society, we don't do that normally. That's not what you're supposed to do. However, yes, we should strive to be the same person we are in the church pew as we are on our couch behind closed doors. Yes, but in reality, none of us are really that same person, because we can't, we're not there to make it about ourselves. We're there to praise the Lord. So people don't really get to know you if just in the church setting. It has to be at a gathering, a dinner, or, people come and visit, game night or things like that. or movie night, so on and so forth, or and like a small group Bible study, for example. And that's where you really find out who people are. And you also find out who you are in a way, because being around other believers, it helps you grow in yourself and also work your own struggles out and your own, faults out too. And, to be honest, we all say things. I'm sure everybody, every week, every day, struggles with the mouth. We all do. I do. That is honestly, if we're gonna take the mask off, that's my biggest downfall. And everybody, I came out. It's like my mom said, I came out running my mouth. So that's my biggest downfall. I mean, I have grown up a lot. I mean, I don't run my mouth like I used to when I was in high school, for example. And when I was 2 and 3, I have more self-control. But we all have days where we struggle with there's always something in a Christian's life that is the sin that they struggle with, and it doesn't matter what it is. And it could be anything. It could be the mouth, it could be lust, it could be envy, it could be pride, it could be homosexuality, it could be pornography. It's all the same. It could be suicide, mental thoughts about self-harm. That these are kind of the things that are popular right now that people are talking about. But all in all, we all struggle with something, no matter what it is. Every Christian has a past, and they have things that they struggle with in their past, and you can overcome that, yes, but temptation is there. Does temptation mean you're sinning? No. It's when you give in to the temptation is when the sin happens. But temptation, there will always be things that tempt you. Like, do I choose to go to church or do I choose to go to the football game? That's a temptation. Well, do I want to go have fun with my friends or do I want to go to that Bible study? There's always, the world's always tempting you with things that look more fun than serving God. And I'm not putting down anybody, but it's, this is just the reality of being a Christian.
So D.L. Moody would say, well, let's come up with a way to help those that are involved with sports, and let's come up with a new church day so that they can still do their sports. And because that's what D.L. Moody would say. And then he would take it even a step further.
Let me tell you, because I have experience with the sport thing.
There's two ways that would happen. Wait.
Let me explain.
You would do another service for those that are involved with sports, but then he would take it even a step further. He would go to the game and be like, no, there's a halftime program. No. I could probably talk to these guys during the halftime program.
I had to make a choice.
Yeah.
When I was, I was 14 years old. I had to make a choice. I had signed up to play on a summer league, and it was, I had played in 1993, I was 12. I played on a slow pitch team, and I loved it. Softball team. And then I didn't go the next year, but then when I was 14, I signed up, and that's when they started doing fast pitch, and I was all excited about it. And my mom signed me up. We spent like $60-some on my uniform and all that stuff. We got everything. And I went to the first practice, and the coach looks at everybody and says, "Oh, I'm just letting you know, I'm going to be cussing you out if you mess up." Well, number one, I'm not going to let somebody just stand there and cuss me out. It's just a stupid game. Okay? It's not life or death. Okay? I'm only 14 years old. You're not going to stand there. A grown man in his, 40s is not going to stand there and cuss at me just because I didn't make a catch. I'm sorry. I'm not going to put up with that. Then he says, oh, and we have practice every Wednesday night at this time. And I raised my hand. Ugh, and here I go. And I said, well, I can't come to that practice because I have church that night. And he looks at me, and he was really mean. And he says, well, you either choose between softball or church. And in front of all the parents and in front of all my teammates, I walked off the field and I went home. And I never went back. And my mom got angry because they wouldn't refund her money for the uniform. But she understood. So in a way, she was proud of me, but at the same time, she was mad that she lost $60-some. That was non-refundable. But he told me to make a choice because he said, you either come to this practice or you're off the team. And I made my choice. I got saved when I was 12 years old, so God was everything to me. And I made my choice, and I never played softball again. I never played another sport. I never played another sport, like on a team, but I would go, and play, I would play street basketball with the guys, or, me and my friend, my sister get together, we go play. But I never played, actually on a team ever again, because I would not choose between a sport and God. So, when you say, oh, well, we should make another church service to accommodate these people. No, I'm sorry. I don't think so.
But D.L. Moody would do that.
I don't think so.
I think he would.
You have to make a choice.
Because he wants to evangelize everybody.
Jeremy, you have to make a choice between the world
but here's what
and
I
God.
think he would do. I think he would accommodate that as a temporary thing. He would go to the games so that he could talk to them before the game, during the halftime show, and afterwards, in an attempt of recruitment to get them to go to the regular services.
Well, okay.
You gotta meet people where they're at.
But you're saying, okay, well, let's accommodate everybody. Let's have a separate service for the old people. Let's have a separate service for the young people. Let's have a separate service for the people that have kids in sports. That's what's going on now, and that's not right. Mm-hmm. That's wrong. You're dividing the church. The church should be together. The old, the young, should be together. Oh, well, we have a contemporary service because there's people that don't like. Well, I'm sorry, you're singing about Jesus. Well, if you don't like because you're singing a certain type of music, mix it together. Sing new and old. You can do both. That's what we do. But that's what I'm saying. I had to make a choice between the world and serving God. And I walked off that field in front of everybody. And I'm sure there were some pretty shocked people. I never said another word when he said, you make your choice now. And he went on talking about, practice and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and I just walked off. And I walked home. And I never went back. And you know what? I don't miss it. I'm absolutely, you know what? I would rather go to church on a Wednesday night and hear people shouting and praising Jesus than be on a baseball diamond and hear this man shouting and cussing and screaming at me. Because I didn't make this catch, or I didn't steal this base at the right time, or I didn't hit the ball at the right time. What would you do? I mean, I'm not doing that. That's just how I am. I'm just too bullheaded. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about having to make a choice, I did. And that's what I did. I refused to stand there and be, verbally abused by a coach just for, playing. It's just a stupid game. It's just a game. It's supposed to be fun. And I was already not having fun. So and I never played in school. Because I would have had to choose. And, that very next year when I was 15, that's when I started playing, drums professionally in churches. So, I made my choice and I have no regrets. So, we got 10 minutes. We got 10 minutes.
Like I was saying with D.L. Moody, I think if he was here, he would want to find ways to meet all this stuff that's going on, whether it's a sporting game or it's a political thing or what's happening now today. Kids don't play much outside. Most everything's online. He would want to find ways to meet these people where they're at and then find a way to educate them in the word of the Lord. Get them to come to these different things. And then he wanted to go even further and not just preach to people. He'd want to give someone a skill.
Mm-hmm. Let them find out what their gifts are so they could use them for the church. We're
not even talking about gifts and that, but he wanted to help people that didn't have basic life functions. He taught people how to clean themselves.
Yeah.
Basic hygiene. He taught people how to clean their clothes, how to make food, how to do different basic needs.
And the sad thing about that is This was back in the late 1800s. We need people to rise up and teach these skills today, because the generations that are coming behind the, 35 and up, they have no life skills. I mean, most of them don't know how to cook or clean properly, or do
they
things.
Don't know how to tie. I know people that are under 21. They don't know how to tie ties. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to clean.
Are you 21?
Under the age of 21, there's people that don't know this.
But are you talking about over the? I'm talking about over the age.
21.
Over the age 21, I believe there are too.
Well, there is in each group, but the problem is, and there's different things going on. Like when I was in school, I had home economics, so I learned how to cook.
Yeah, I had home ec too.
I learned how to tie. I had junior achievement classes, so I learned about buying a car and different things like that. But depending on where certain people live and the lifestyle that people are going through, there's things that you would have to go to someone like D.L. Moody to learn, or you would have to go somewhere else today and learn. And I've been seeing a few posts that I've shared where they're starting to teach what I've called a life class. And I mentioned this on the show before. For society in America and the rest of the world to get better, there's some basic skills that, and not to place blame on parents, which there could be a blame on parents. A huge
part of it is.
This is not about blaming at this point. We're past the point of blame. People have been blaming society, blaming parents, blaming this, blaming that. Let's stop the blame. Let's solve the problem. Let's quit talking about the problem. Let's solve it.
Sorry, I
saw
something.
There are schools that are trying to bring these kinds of courses back.
They need to.
There are programs that are trying to assist people in learning these different things. Because if we don't, then how are people going to be able to provide for themselves? I know some people that are in their 20s and 30s that can't cook.
It isn't just these life skills, but also coping skills on how to cope with life, emotionally and mentally. We're not preparing people mentally and emotionally how to handle life, and I think that's why there's so much drug addiction and suicide and self-harm and because they don't know how to cope. And if you watch the show Intervention, what do they say? Oh, I can't cope with this. I've got to have my drugs. That is the only way they know how to cope with life. Is to numb it. Just I'm just not going to deal with this. I'll numb it with these drugs.
So if you look at people that are end up homeless, or people that have been involved with drugs or sex addiction or things like that, that's one of the first things that any place does. A good domestic violence shelter, a good homeless shelter, a good halfway house, a good counselor, a good psychiatrist. Those basic functions are the first things that are integrated back into somebody, and then they're eventually transitioned back into society. And I think these kinds of core tenets, looking at D.L. Moody's life, that was the thing that he saw was most prevalent and needed. And those things are still needed today.
Oh, yeah.
So
the world never stops needing to know how to cope with life and how to live life fully.
Correct. So I think going back to the devotional about what a man is or what a woman is and who they really are in their heart, who they are from church to where they are in their personal home, is what are we as Christians doing to help one another? Make that happen. Because we know there are masks that people put on. We know there are things that people don't want to talk about. Because they know that if they do start talking, some people will just completely break down. You ask how you're doing, and your wife is sick in the hospital, or you failed your math exam, or whatever it is, and you can't really answer those questions. You just say you're fine or whatever. What are we doing to reach people beyond the surface? This is going to lead up to a future study on JMC Live, where we're going to get beyond the surface of what Christians go through, and we're going to have several different topics that we'll be going through in the future, discussing these things.
Probably like in October. Well, we'll talk about once you get saved, for example, you know, life does not just become a bowl of cherries. No. In most cases, it actually gets harder. So, but to share what we've been through and how we survived and how we coped with life experiences, I mean, that's the only way that we know how to, I guess, show people how to make it through, because this is how, not necessarily you have to do exactly the same way we did, but this is what we used, or, you know, we read, or, you know, the scriptures that helped us, and, or, you know, so on and so forth. But, I'm getting sleepy, sorry.
Oh, it's been a long day. So
it has been a long day.
We're going to go ahead and end JMC Live for tonight. Do we want to go ahead and mention what we're doing next month?
Ooh, yes. Next month, September, the whole month of September, we are going to focus our hot topic for both shows is going to be about the Christian musician, songwriter Rich Mullins, because September was the month that he passed away in a vehicle accident back in, I think, 1998. I'll have to double check on that, but it's been like 21 years ago since he passed away. And we got a DVD that has clips, about 5-minute clips of some of the highlights of lectures he gave at different colleges. And so we're going to highlight these two clips from this DVD, and I think you really like them. And then, of course, one song for each show will be a Rich Mullins song, and we hope you are excited about that, because we really are. But we've got all that done, and then the first week of September we will do a preview video and go more in depth of the top, the clips that we'll be sharing, and also the devotional, Bible devotional we'll be covering. And so that's it. We hope you've enjoyed the shows we've done for the month of August 2018. Hope you've enjoyed learning about D.L. Moody and his ministry and life. We certainly have. We didn't really know much about him before we started researching him, and deciding this was the topic. And then we hope you've enjoyed the devotional about the prophet Elijah and his life a bit and everything. And we will see you again. What's the date? You'll have to go to the next month. It will be the 10th. It will be September 10th when our next show will be. So we will see you then. And good night, and God bless you. We'll see you in September.